And this is KWMR 90.5 Point Reyes Station, 89.9 Bolinas, and 92.3 in the San Geronimo Valley, streaming live and archiving at kwmr.org, and also cablecasting on Horizon Cable Channel 47 and on the public radio app on your smartphone. So there's no excuse. Listen. And coming up next is Let's Talk Call-In Radio. Yes, this is Let's Talk Call-In Radio.
And we're getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This is On-Air Community Forum. This On-Air Community Forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR.
Your hosts today are Mary Frank leading our conversation, Paul Raffel answering the phones, and I'm Robin Carpenter.
And when you call in and hear the phone ringing, just hang on. And when you hear me say you are on the air, turn down your radio, watch your language, tell us your name.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about fruitful aging, finding the gold in the golden years. And the reason that, I was interested in this topic was that I realized one day that, like mothers and having new babies have more information about their refrigerator than the new baby that they're bringing home. And that the same thing was true for when we go out the other side. We all come in through the same door. We all go out through the same door. And until recently, there's been very little information about how do we get the gold in the golden years? How do we deal with limited physical abilities? The people who become more rigid and fearful live a very different kind of life in their older years than the ones who can surrender to flexibility and tap into their earlier dreams when their responsibilities are less. They're not raising their families. It's a less egoic state of mind that can allow us to look deeper into the things that really turn us on, turn our soul on, that we don't think about when we're very, very busy. And a lot of this was encouraged by Tom Pinkson's book, Fruitful Aging. I did a workshop with him, and he gave a series of exercises as well in that workshop that really stimulated people to think about how do we deal with limited physical abilities, friends dying, not having the fullness of a social network. What are the things that we can do that will encourage a new way of looking at aging? And I thought that I got a lot out of it. And it's like, how do I say it? In contrast, fruitful aging, this is from Tom, grows out of an attitudinal and behavior shift from an emphasis on ego identity to soul drives, remembering forgotten ideals, seeing what can be, not just what is, and the reclamation of really some of the more beautiful things in life that you can think about that you couldn't when you were so busy raising your kids and out there in the workforce. Of course, that's limited now to people who are struggling with retirement not being as fruitful as it used to be, and they're still working like me. But I do notice in my own life and my own attitudes, there has been a shift in terms of more how can I serve and what can I do that really nourishes my heart?
Which is important in your in the years where you suddenly have time on your hands. If you're fortunate enough to have time on your hands in your later years, what are you going to do with it? You're going to sit around and watch MacGyver, or what are you going to do? Yes, why not? Why not be of service in your old age?
Well, I think one of the things that's unique here in West Marin is that we are a great community. You know, we're a community. To me, I don't know the exact numbers, but if you just look around of all of us who live out here, that we are an older community. I think the average age is probably older than most. And we have a community of so many people. So many of our elders in the community have been activists or have been very active in the world and have, worked on different issues. And we have so I think we have a very vibrant elder community that you don't often find somewhere else. And I think we also have, and I haven't yet begun to avail myself of them, but we have some really great senior services with the West Marin Senior Services Program, Stockstill House, the free weekly lunch at the Dance Palace. There's so many things that we have. There's a lot of attention, positive attention being paid to our elders in the community. So to me, it is a great community to be an elder. I think the hardest part, one of the things I think about is losing the ability to drive. And especially when you live in a rural community where, it's very different. If you're living in the city, you can get a cab or whatever. So to me, one of the things that I think about as Andy and I are looking to, are we going to stay here through the end of our golden years, or will we relocate somewhere else? And looking at things like that, like, what happens when you can't drive anymore? And what happens, so you start to have considerations, like for us, if we're thinking of moving, what would be where we still have great community? Because we always think of our community as our Social Security in a sense that, being embedded in a great community that's, I think on the whole, we're supportive. A pretty compassionate, supportive community is just really helps make, I think, that part of your life as fruitful as possible.
Mm-hmm. And that brings up another point, that it's never been more important to pay attention to your health. If you haven't until now's a real good time to do it, because studies have shown that if your mind's in the right place, it's possible to downregulate inflammation, which is a huge cause of illness, and to pay attention to what you eat and all of the normal things that everybody knows but doesn't necessarily do. It becomes mandatory as you get older if you want to be healthy in your older years.
Oh, dear.
I know, we're in trouble, but it's so important.
Dr. Hamlin here in town, who Andy and I go to, Dr. Hamlin and Carrie, I guess it was about a year ago, he was giving the talk to Andy, and I've gotten the talk about this is the point in our lives, we're in our early 60s, where we really must, as he was saying, now is the time to really make sure you're taking care of yourself and to really get yourself in great shape, because if you don't, doing it now will set you up for a nicer, more fruitful, more comfortable old age. And so Andy had come, my office is right next door. He'd come over and I said, how'd it go? And he goes, well, and I got to talk about, lose a little weight and we need to be exercising more. And now if we don't do it now, we're going to really regret it when we're 75. And so I said, okay, well, let's go get dinner. And I said, but before we go, let's stop by the Western and have a cocktail. Often on a nice day, the doors of the saloon are wide open. So there Andy and I sit at the bar having a cocktail. And Dr. Hamlin walks by and puts his head in and goes, hi, I see you're following my advice. So that's the other thing about living in a community where it's supportive, you get busted too.
Yes, it's a small town, which has its ups and downs, right? So advice on being fruitful in my old age, what would...
Well, Tom brought up a very good point that kind of stimulated me to think about how I would move forward, which is he gave us, one of the exercises he gave was First I want to tell you a little bit. I want to give you a little background on Tom because he's quite an interesting guy. Since I'm talking about him, let me tell you who he is. He served as a bridge builder between ancient wisdom and contemporary society, and I'm quoting one of his bios from his book, walking in two worlds, one of traditional healing and one of Western psychology, helping address the challenges of modern living. For over 40 years, he's worked with indigenous elders in the deserts of Mexico to the jungles of the Amazon, embracing spiritual teachings and sharing them with integrity to both preserve ancient knowledge and leverage the wisdom to create practical application of the issues that face our world today. But putting it in practical terms, he worked with Jerry Jampolsky for the Center of Attitudinal Healing for years and helped form a wilderness program for teens in trouble, young men in trouble. He himself was a juvenile delinquent and got saved by his attraction to indigenous teachings. He lived with the Huichols for years and studied for 11 years, I think he was down there. And so he's like a bridge psychologist. He brings in those aspects and also the shamanic practices.
So he's not just the typical appropriator of ancient culture and trying to make a buck off it. He's actually doing
the work. He's doing it. I mean, he's worked with heroin addicts, taking them into the wilderness. His programs have been extraordinarily successful and copied really all over the world. So anyway, one of the things, he takes people on vision quests as well for heroin addicts. One of the things he said is, if you can imagine, if you're trying to get to some of the things that that turned you on as a young person when you turned away from as you either raised your families or worked really hard at your career or both, what if you imagine that you have a nonprofit and money is no problem whatsoever. You can do whatever you want. What would that be? No problems with money. What would the mission statement for that organization be? Because that's a key into where you are right now and a key back to to your bigger meaning, to your soul meaning. Because we come in with, at least this is my belief, we come in with an imprint, a path. We get taken off the path and we go back to the path. And, that's kind of like the story of everybody's life. How do you stay on track to that inner urgings? And that was one of the ways that he talked about. Because when you get older, you have to stay open and flexible and fluid with novelty, because the loss of control, the loss of loved ones can really shake you. I'm experiencing that right now with some of my very dearest friends. And by having a practice, which is something else he talked about, if you have a practice that, whatever it is, meditation, walking in the woods, painting, some of these things, whether you have money or not, can make you remember the things that gave you joy as a younger person. You can play the flute if that was what turned you on. So none of these things are necessarily attached to, do you have a big 401k? A lot of it is just turning into the inner voices that we sometimes forget to listen to as we get too busy.
Well, I was thinking that fruitful aging was something more about action rather than going deeper into oneself as one gets older.
It is. It's for many people. No, I'm sorry I didn't include that. I should have. I thought I did. It's a lot about service. A lot of times you can go, if you can give back in ways that you couldn't before. But the way you do that, the more it's in tune with what really has the deepest meaning for you, is the service that's going to bring you forward along with who you serve.
I think it's interesting because I was just thinking about Donna Sheehan, Paul's former partner.
There she is again,
Miss Donna, and
she's our guest host every day.
She's at it again, but she really sort of found her purpose or the work she wanted to do in her 60s, and and really had a sharp right turn into a whole other path of activist work. And
yes, that's true. It was right around when she turned 60 that she started Mow and Sow and trying to stop the spraying on Highway 1 and all that good stuff. So.
Do you know what prompted that?
Yeah, she came out of a driveway one day to go to the post office, and they were spraying the blackberry bushes in front of her house, which is her pie bush. Right?
Yeah.
So she pulled her Volvo station wagon in front of the spray truck and stopped it right there and said, "You will not spray my town."
Good for her.
And they said, "Yeah, come on, lady," and threatened to call the police. They said, "Call the police. Go ahead." But they called their supervisor, and he said, just call it a day for now. And that started a 13-year thing that ended up in court and all kinds of stuff. But at least they stopped spraying.
I just want to remind everybody that this is Let's Talk Radio with host Mary Frank, Paul Raffel, and I'm Robin Carpenter. Please call us at 415-663-8492 and tell us what you think about fruitful aging and your thoughts. You can also tweet us on at Let's Talk on KWMR with your thoughts and opinions.
Yes, I have the tweet box in front of me, and it's all lit up, ready for your tweets.
I'm just thinking thanks, we have a caller.
Keep talking.
It surprised us. The light's flashing.
Hi, caller, you are on the air. What's your name, please?
Hey, Paul, it's Rich Clark.
Rich Clark, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, it's warm in here. Let's put it that way.
I'll bet it's warm in
It's
there.
ripening our fruit.
I wrote down that I was going to listen and call in, and then I just remembered it. So I kind of missed the first part of the show. I just caught the last couple of minutes, but I have some perspective to add, too.
Well, we'd like to hear it.
So let's talk about something. I just completed a training, teacher training for the yoga teaching that I'm doing that was directed at yoga for healthy aging. And it's interesting. The last part of what I heard was following your call, looking at your calling, and finding a way to come back to that. And that's kind of how I got into yoga and why it's become important to me. And what drew me to this particular teacher training was that it focuses on action, which is what I heard you talking about. Mm-hmm. It focuses on the dynamics of our losses physically, emotionally, neurologically, as we get older, and brings the teaching of yoga into a kind of a recognition that teaching yoga has to identify for those of us, and actually this goes to ages 40, 50, 60 on, but for us geezers who are 70 or older, it focuses on flexibility and teaching people to learn how their body works. It focuses on balance, the vestibular system, the somatic system, the nervous systems, our eyes, all that lose their sort of their fine-tuning as we get older, literally lose it, and how to pay attention to it and how to re-engage it. You know, when you're standing there in the kitchen and you've got 2 eggs on the counter and you step over the dog dish to turn off the water that you turned on, and you see that egg rolling off the counter, and you go to reach out to catch it and put your foot in that dog dish you forgot that you stepped over when you went to turn off the water. And instead of falling, you actually catch yourself as you watch the egg splat on the floor. That kind of agility to catch yourself, the kind of strength that's necessary for the muscles to, the muscles that are deteriorating, the muscles that are literally shortening as we get older, that kind of agility, balance, focus, is something that can be trained. It's something that we can develop and become aware of. We got a mind-body disconnect that's goes on in the Western world, and Eastern medicine has followed a different path, and the two medicines are beginning to cross over and respect each other.
Thank God, yeah.
And our medicine is, and some of our people, some of our medical people are beginning to look at the fact that the brain and the body do have interrelationships. The brain and the stomach and the microbes that are in there communicate.
And your heart has a brain, yeah.
So there's this kind of phenomena now that is beginning to change, and it's coming out of all those yogis and meditators that sat for years in caves and paid attention to their body and developed a system that noticed the energy of our body and where it's located and the chakras and all that stuff. So that stuff's coming into the present, and in a yoga class, that kind of self-awareness, that kind of connection of awareness to the body is what we need.
It is true. And it also connects us to a force greater than all of us.
Absolutely.
And that is something that I think that the potential as you get older, there's an opportunity there, either through yoga or other practices, to connect to that force, because we spend so much of our youth doing what's dictated by others. And when we get older, I used to say, I spent my youth saying I'm worrying about what everybody thought about me, and I want to spend my older years, well, what the heck do I think about them, But it's an opportunity to really connect through yoga, is a good example of that, to the mystical part of life that, has a bigger hand in everything than a lot of us acknowledge.
So, I guess. Oh, sorry.
It's Rich. This is Robin. I had a question for you.
Yeah.
One of the things, because I did yoga for many years when I was younger, I did Iyengar yoga, and so Andy and I and Dr. Hamlin recommended that we try yoga. But I have to confess, the last time several years ago I went to a yoga class, I felt very out of place with A, my age, and B, my weight. Everybody looked just like models in the yoga class. And so do you know are there people doing yoga classes that are in our area or close by that are for those of us who are older?
I think that I'm expecting that by the fall there will be some user-friendly yoga classes for our age group. Although I do think that that both Yoga Toes and the Dance Palace have classes that really speak to our aging bodies.
There's several available. You can just Google it. There's several classes.
I wanted Rich to tell us what's here in our area. Things.
What I want to say is that part of this, and it's one of the things that I think can grow out of the awareness that we can have it as an aging process, is that who gives a bleep about our shape and our body mass at this point in time. Now, I know that it's not an easy thing to give up. I just got through reading an article written by a yoga teacher colleague that talked about her dismay at her weight and her shape and size and how she was trying to let go of that. But I think that what we're looking at in going to a yoga class is learning to have the self-awareness and acceptance that's necessary. There's a lot of yoga classes historically that were about doing the pose exactly this way. And the images that were presented and or brought to the class by those who saw themselves as on the cover of the yoga journal really undermines the process. And I think that with time, I can remember, I've been doing yoga out here since Yoga Toes opened up, and I can remember in classes with Nick Giacomini 35 years older than he is, I guess, deciding as a testosterone-driven male that I was not about to not look like him, move like him, and have poses that would be of equal visual appeal. And with time and injuries and acceptance of this body 35 years older, I've learned to let go of some of that. But that's part of what needs to be within sort of the Sangha, the Yoga Sangha, is that we're here to explore ourselves and grow an awareness of what our bodies can do and develop the awareness and not do it on the basis of what our neighbor on the yoga mat is doing.
Exactly.
So my question is, you have awareness and your body's in good shape. You're connecting with greater power than yourself and you're finding yourself. What do you do with all that? Is it just become an endless cycle of more yoga, more mindfulness, more for the sake of it? Or do you do something with it?
You can. Well,
I think you're asking Rich.
You asking Rich?
Rich or anybody. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do with that? First of all, some people are walking in there for the first time. So the awareness that you're talking about, that somebody that's been doing it for 10 or 15 years or come back to it, and coming back to it is a real common thing at this point in time, because a lot of people did do it for a long time, and then life took over, and now they're looking for it again. I remember seeing Sting in an interview when the interviewer asked him about yoga, and by the end of the interview, he had his foot behind his head and was showing what he could do. And I thought, wow.
I always use someone else's foot.
I'd like to have that flexibility when I'm older, but I'm not going to try to do those poses at this point in life.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is practice that sort of equanimity, that ability to take things in, do it as best as I can physically, and let go of the judgment of whether I did it like the partner next to me or my spouse or anything.
And I think that is one of the gifts
with us. That's what we carry with us.
Yeah.
It's not about
ego
going regurgitation of the same thing over and over again. You're right. It's about separating the ego from the mind and body, and not having that be a bad thing. I mean, your ego has its place.
Yeah, but I think as you get older, one of the gifts is that can take a lesser position so that you can connect with the I'm going to start with where I am. I'm going to do the best that I can do. I don't care if the lady next to me is skinny and gorgeous and 20. I'm going to do what I can do. And that's a gift of age for many of us, some of us not. But I think it comes with a little bit of wisdom that you realize you have to begin with where you are.
Well, and I
like that word because I've been thinking about this as wisdom yoga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Rich, I mean, for me too, I think this is Robin. I think to have a teacher that understands that with an older, heavier body, there's certain poses that I would need to have them show me how to adapt to do the closest I can.
And good teachers. My teacher he has a 4-level class. There's girls that are 20 and there's women that are 75. And she gives and she's not the only one doing this, Robin. She gives every single pose 3 different ways of doing it. So that exists and it's quite prevalent.
And that does, Debbie Daly does that often with in her yin classes. I know that it is there for the mining and or will grow more, I think, in this community as we recognize that a lot of the population really is Medicare eligible and needs to have a yoga that's less Lululemon oriented, more oriented to our needs. And you know what? I think what's important is to realize that the young yoga teachers have no wisdom about this, and it's not a bad thing. It's just a reality that it takes 60 or 70 years to get to where you realize that, oh my God, I can't reach for the phone without falling over.
Yeah.
And how do I prevent that?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't happen. I remember when Nick got an injury midway into his 30s, early into his 30s, I thought, wow, he's had his first yoga injury. and that was a part of his education.
Sure.
And those of us that have been tripping, falling is
that's my biggest
for us guys.
Bringing the balance thing up to me, because I have always, as Marion, as in my life, I'm a very clumsy person. I've had several falls that sent me to the hospital. I tend to be very clumsy. And so to me, that's one of my biggest. So bringing that up and tying that into the yoga is really helpful, because I thought about what can I do to, I'm such a faller anyway.
Yeah, right.
What can I do to increase my sense of balance? Because that's a serious issue as you get older.
Yeah, and in my class, just as an anecdote, that she spends at least 15 minutes on the class on balance.
Yeah.
And she's very aware of, us older folk, and she addresses that, and a lot of teachers do that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rich. Thanks. It was a great
Thank
call.
you so much.
Great show. Great thing to be talking about. It's a reality for so many of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Good day.
And this is KWMR, 90.5 Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, and 92.3 in San Geronimo Valley, streaming live on kwmr.org. KWMR is supported by Gallery Route 1 in Point Reyes Station, presenting Points of Departure, Gallery Route 1's annual Artist Members Exhibition, running through July 31st. Oh, coming up. GRO is open 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. and is closed on Tuesdays. Information at 415-663-1347 or online at galleryroute1.org. And KWMR is also supported by Point Reyes Vacation Rentals, a local family-run and community-minded vacation rental business with over 25 years of experience in lodging and hospitality management. Point Reyes Vacation Rentals rents and manages homes throughout West Marin. More information at 415-663-6113 or online at pointreyesvacationrentals.com.
You're listening to Let's Talk Radio with co-host Mary Frank, Paul Raffel, and I'm Robin Carpenter. Please share your views with us by calling 415-663-8492, or you can tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR.
And today we're talking about fruitful aging, and what can that mean to those of us who are aging. Let's put it that way. Do call in, and when you hear me say you're on the air, give us your first name, turn down your radio, and please watch your language. 415-663-8492.
Another one of the exercises that Tom gave us, which is almost like a yoga of the mind, because it all goes together. Mm-hmm. And he said one of the things he had us do was you ask yourself 3 questions. One of them is, the reason I came to Earth this time and place is so that I could fill in the blank. Another question following that is, one pattern I was born with to understand that keeps recurring until it is understood and mastered is fill in the blank. And if someone said to you, go for it, what is your it? And that got me on a journey and helped me sit back at my keyboard. I actually started writing music after this. Huh. And I think those are good questions to ask. It's like a yoga of the mind in terms of...
Well, yoga is the mind.
Yeah, exactly. But it gets you to the bigger connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so what's your it, Paul?
My it?
Go for it.
I don't really know. Why am I here? What is the point of me? I don't really have a great shining thing that I'm grasping for. I think it's just creating love and keeping love in my life and helping whoever I can help and trying to do as little damage as possible.
I think that's a great it. What are you talking about? I think that as you get older, it's the biggest opportunity we have in our whole life is to reconnect and receive the love that's available to us that we don't necessarily open to when we're too busy.
And I think, your it doesn't have to necessarily be,
I want to climb Everest.
To change the world. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, I think it depends on kind of phases, because when you do, which, Paul, you've done, when you do a lot of activist work and you're, doing, education on so many fronts and a lot of peace activist work, I think you can ebb and flow with it also, where there's time that you just need to, you've been outputting so much that you just need to hold a space to receive or be bask in it. I remember someone saying to me once, "Oh my gosh, if something happened to me, if I became immobile and I had to be in a wheelchair, I just wouldn't want to be here anymore." Or someone else said to me, "I can't imagine why someone would want to live to be 100 or whatever." And I thought, as long as you can sit me in a chair in front of a window with a decent view and give me a nice cup of coffee and I can still taste it, I don't care if someone else has to hold it to my lips. As long as there's still, to me, as long as I can still experience some pleasure. I think that the proviso is, when you become in chronic pain, that's really, a difficult thing. Just thinking in terms of the kinds of things, because you can have things happen to you that are, genetic or a disease that hits you or whatever when you're aging. And then, how do you cope with that? How do you, deal with, because as we get older, those kinds of things are more likely to happen to us. So, how do we,
it's good to have perspective on the quality of life, right? I mean, there's the innate thing of hanging on until your last breath, no matter what happens. Yeah. But there's also, if you are in chronic pain and if you're on medications for that chronic pain, then who are you? You can lose track of what life is, and so maybe it's time for.
Well, and I think that just thinking in terms of fruitful aging, also thinking, having clear in your mind as well, like if this happened to me or that happened to me, having a sense of how you would want to cope with that and deal with that. And our culture is getting so much better with palliative care and hospice care, which are different, and looking at those kinds of things too. As far as my cousin's been working in hospice care for many, many years, and I've been blessed enough to go volunteer where she is, and just seeing what their very first thing is when someone comes to them is to get them into as fruitful a place as they can, comfortable, what do you like? I remember when my stepmom Rebecca went into Angela's hospice care, and they had been doing all these things to her, traditional Western hospital stuff and intubating, just all. And so Angela goes, "What would you like?" And she said, "I would like to be off of all of this, and I would like to be able to have a scotch every evening." So we went and got her some crystal scotch tumblers.
To have a goal.
And, just like they were all this stuff being done intrusively to her, and she had gotten so weak that nobody was able to. Everybody was arguing about what should be done, and there was this very intrusive thing, and she just wanted her last period of time. She first of all wanted everybody to see that she was going and to stop all the intervention.
With her, yeah.
And secondly, she wanted one of her favorite nightgowns. She wanted to be in her favorite nightgown.
Comfortable.
Yeah. And she had a beautiful view on a garden. And,
there's a wonderful tool on the internet that you can get called 5 Wishes. Then it's free. And what you do is it asks 5 questions about what you want in your, how do you want to end things? What kind of music do you want playing? Who do you want to be around? What do you want? It's not a complicated will. It's nothing. It's just how do you see your end of life? It's very helpful. And I just want to go back to what you were saying, Paul, and both of you and Robin. that, as you get older, I've done a lot of activist work, as you know, a lot of it very dangerous and intense and, in the eye of the storm. But I feel I'm contributing as well by mentoring people. That doesn't mean I'm out there throwing my body against the tanks anymore.
Right.
But I'm talking to people and advising people, young people, who are doing this work. And that's a wonderful thing about getting older. You have all of this experience. You have had all of this... all of these stories behind you, and just in sharing the stories, that helps people move through the issues that they're dealing with.
Well, that sort of embodies fruitfulness to me. I mean, the idea of fruitful is that you're bearing fruit that someone else can pluck.
Yeah.
So yeah, the accumulated wisdom of just being on Earth for a number of years is worth people who have actually learned something during their lives.
Yeah. And
if they can pass it on down to another generation, that's fabulous, and that's what parenting's supposed to be all about. But.
Yeah, and I've said to some of the younger women that, okay, you get older, you get fatter, you get wrinkles, but guess what? You start to figure it out, and you start to have a whole different view on what's really, really important. And that can change everything.
And, of course, you could always run for president. Right?
Yeah.
What are they? They're 70 and 69 and, so the wisdom of the wise elders. I don't know that everyone who's old is necessarily wise just by dint of being old, but there is a certain wisdom to just having been around for a long time. You've learned a bunch of lessons, and there must be experience that you can pass on, advice you can give, if anyone's willing to listen. And, it's still a youth-oriented culture.
Well, they have to ask.
You wouldn't really know it in West Marin because, it's not really a youth-oriented culture out here. Hi, caller. You are on the air. What's your name, please?
This is Sally.
Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Sally.
Hi out there in Radio Land.
Uh-oh.
I always wanted to say that. I'm sorry. Okay, so here are my thoughts. Well, I have just maybe one thought. And if I'm lucky, I can complete a thought as I age. Here's the thing. Levity. We like to have our levity and look upon our aging as, to maybe not take ourselves so dreadfully seriously that we lose our sense of humor. And then the other crucial thing is to look upon aging as a gift rather than a curse, because our whole culture is about what a wretched curse it is, and especially for women, we fight it, and we look at our skin and notice the changes and our, whatever, the contours and the wrinkles, etc. And as hard as it is to not be perhaps occasionally or more often even appalled, like, oh my God, wait,
where'd that come from?
Where did that
What is
line?
that?
When did that line emerge? When did that pocket of skin just drop? So, it's a gift to age and to be healthy. And so many people are aging and have very, chronic pain, chronic illnesses, and that's just a terrible burden. And I feel compassion for those people who are dealing with those kinds of illnesses and challenges. And so for me, I have, my few challenges, health challenges, and I just look at it as, well, I'm so lucky these are minor issues.
Someone said, embrace your aging. It's a privilege denied many.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it. And I'm trying mostly to counteract, to change my way of thinking, because my mother used to look in the mirror every day and go, oh my God, I look terrible. And she really did that, and she really meant it. I mean, she was very attached to beauty, and her world revolved around her beauty. But what she didn't, the piece she missed was that she remained beautiful even as she was aging. And everybody said so, and everybody told her, but she didn't really believe it. So we have to really take it in ourselves, if we can, into our hearts and souls and minds, and really believe it, that we are beautiful and as we age. So that's the thing, fighting the media on that. But
there are huge forces arrayed against feeling good as you age. It's commercial and. It's worth a lot of money to sell, especially women, but men also sell them
anti-aging products.
Yeah. Really?
I like,
what would that be?
Yeah, exactly.
But it is hard, Sally. I think it's for women. There's this point at which I remember a friend of mine's mother back when I was younger, who I thought was so beautiful, and she talked about what was the most disturbing thing about getting older for her was the point at which she became invisible. All of her life, she'd been used to men turning their heads when she walked by, and that there was this point at which that's stopped. You know, she said it sort of wound down and then stopped. And she said that was a very shocking awareness for her that. And she said for a year or two, it really depressed her and bothered her. And then she realized she had this great power because she'd never been taken very seriously. She was very beautiful, but she kind of had that sort of young cheerleader kind of look. And so people didn't give her any credit for having any gravitas at all. And she said, so one of the things, though, that happened was people wanted to know what she was thinking and wanted to, that her value, the value shifted of what people who did see her, what they wanted or how they interacted with her, that she was being taken more seriously. So she saw it eventually as a gift, but at first it was a shock.
And that is a tough one. I have friends who say this to me, well, I'm single and I'm going out and I'm going to this bar or this restaurant and I feel completely invisible, or I feel as if I'm the oldest person in the room, things like this. And I go to a lot of music shows where I am one of the oldest people in the room, and in a way, I just sort of, I'm partially, like mortified, like, oh, God, everybody's, you could just go full-on self-conscious and ride that wave. But what the heck? Why not just have fun and
enjoy your life
and provide an image, a positive image for the young people who may not know it yet, what they're watching. They may think, there's that crazy lady dancing. But really, they may later remember and say, she kind of had the right idea. Don't stop dancing and just don't let what you think is the norm stymie you or stifle you and your spirit, because it is about the spirit.
It is.
I also think a lot of people who think that they are invisible really aren't so invisible, and that it's about energy.
Yeah.
If you can conjure a certain kind of inner spirit, it shows.
Sure.
I think it radiates out, and also to see younger people. I think I'm kind of weaving a story where it's the young against the old. I don't mean to do that.
But I think you're right, Sally. There's a self-consciousness when you go into what is normally a young person's environment. It does create a self-consciousness. And, I know I took Andy to go see Lady Gaga about 6 years ago when she still was playing small venues. And I said, now, we're going to be the fattest, oldest people there. and Andy, that's what I do. I said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to wear all black and wear our sunglasses. And we're going to pretend that we're Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie in The Hunger. And we'll just have a look on our face like we're mysterious and you're drawn to us. And you have no idea why these big people all dressed in black, what they're thinking and why they're wearing sunglasses. And so we just sort of created this persona of who we were when we went in, and we actually had a great time. We ended up dancing with everybody. And
I'm going to go with you next time.
That sounds like fun. I like what, humor again. I like what Maya Angelou was saying, who certainly seemed to enjoy her elder years more than most people on the planet. She was quite a babe as a young woman and quite a dancer, did all kinds of amazing things. And she was talking to a group of women, and she says, look, there's a race to my waist with my breasts. So what? I'm having a good time.
Wonderful.
Isn't that wonderful?
So don't stop dancing, everybody. And
No.
never dance, start, because it's about movement and balance. Just
Okay, I'll start.
yeah, that means you too. So.
We'll go have Rich teach us balance first.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Well, thanks for letting me chime in.
Thank you,
Thank
Sally.
you. Thanks for calling in.
All right.
This is KWMR's weekly Let's Talk call-in show with co-host Mary Frank, Paul Raffel, and me, Robin Carpenter. To join our conversation, please call us at 415-663-8492.
8492. And hey, if you're young and not actually working too hard to listen and call in and tell us who your mentors were or are, or who the aged ones are in your life whose opinions and knowledge you respect. How's that?
Sounds good.
How's that for a challenge?
I want to just quote Mendel in The Shaman's Body, and he talks about, here's the quote, for Fruitful Aging. Oh, we got a caller.
Oh, keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stay open, flexible, and fluid with novelty, loss of control, surprise, and disequilibrium, so you actualize your innate potentials as a self-renewing, self-organizing system, emphasizing resiliency rather than stability to respond skillfully to change.
To expand skillfully to change.
Yeah.
Oh. Hi, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please? Hello. Hello. Nope. Nobody there. Okay.
They went away?
They went away.
Chickened out.
I like that. I like that line.
Yeah.
Expanding gracefully. What was it?
Expanding, and now I forgot it too. We're so old we forgot the line you just said to us.
Expanding gracefully into change. I think
Yeah.
that was it. Yeah, it's a lovely idea, of course. And expansion doesn't stop. I mean, not just physical expansion, but expansion doesn't
God,
stop
I hope
as
it
you
does.
grow.
Well, I've had some wonderful role models of older people that have inspired me in times of, actually, I was quite ill. And one of them was my aunt. I may have talked about her. She's now 100. Did I talk about? I can't remember. I can't remember. And
We don't remember, so it's new to us.
You know, some things are worth repeating.
Yeah, okay. So she just had her 100th birthday, and when I went back to Chicago, I had lunch with her. And I was trying to, she's really, how's a good, she enjoys life. And I felt that, she's very gossipy, she's like a little bit gossipy, but in a good way. She's not vicious, but I think that she's very engaged and very involved. But I think the reason that she has aged so amazingly well, because God knows she didn't take care of herself too much, is her attitude. Her attitude and love of being alive has brought a richness to her and a longevity to her, because she just gets a kick out of everything. Not everything. I mean, she's had lots of horrible things happen in her family, but she's always, I've known her since I've been my whole entire life. She was my mother's dear friend, and we used to call her light and airy like Aunt Elaine, because she had that ability to, no matter what was going on, she would manage to see another side that either took you deeper into a better place or that lifted you. And because I think she lifted so many, she's still around.
I think it's interesting because, to me, I know I need to do certain things and exercise and XYZ, but if I have to give up being hedonistic in order to live to be 100,
You don't want to.
I don't want to.
I don't blame you.
I really. One of the things that I don't know if it's a Southern thing or my strange family thing, we all have this thing about what was the last thing that someone we know ate before they died, because we find it comforting if it was good. And so I always think about when Aunt Gladys, when I got the call that she was like my mother figure to me, my auntie, Aunt Gladys, when my cousin called, she says, I think Mom was taking a sudden turn for the worse. She had COPD, so we always knew at some point it was just going to be a tipping point. And she said, I don't think she's going to make it. And, and so I was getting ready to get on the plane. We lived in Marshall. And then she called me back and she said, she's gone. And she said, but you know what she ate? And I go, yeah, what did she eat last? So she goes well, yesterday we went over to Momo's garden and we got some onions. And you know how you and Mama both love liver and onions and we all hate it and it stinks up the house? She had a big plate of liver and onions. And then she got up around 11 o'clock that night and she had some of her, once every week she made a pound cake. She had a slice of her pound cake with some yogurt and strawberries on top.
Wow.
And a glass of sweet tea. And she said, so that was the last thing that she ate. And Andy, we're on speakerphone, and Andy's like, why are you talking to, why do you do that? And when Andy's father died, I found when I was emptying some stuff off on his desk, and I realized in the refrigerator, I realized I could reconstruct what his last meal was. And it was salmon with asparagus and some Chardonnay.
No
and I was
kidding.
so excited. It's Andy, I know what your dad ate last. And he was like, so, but I wonder if that's in our family. We always, know those things. And I think it's part of it's a comforting thing to know, right before they died, they enjoyed this
Toast and
or
Marmite.
that. Yeah.
Well, here's my mother's last morsel on earth. She said to me, they say I'm getting better, but I'm not. Bring me a shot of vodka.
Hey.
She had a shot of vodka, and 1 hour later she was dead.
Wow.
Ooh,
Yeah.
better not name the brand. Yikes.
Hopefully it wasn't the man from Marshall's Special Distilled.
I don't know who you're talking about. Yeah, so ending life, is that fruitful? It's fruitful for oneself, certainly, to enjoy life to the last minute and to have, eating comfort food in your last hours, I think that's a wonderful thing.
It is a wonderful
And
thing.
that you still have, right before you died, you still had some hedonistic urges for pleasure, to enjoy the pleasure of what life you have left, what senses you have left, and to really, still be in a place to be able to experience pleasure, I think is, to me, very important. To be having pleasurable experiences.
Well, you might as well. Well, miserable old geezer is
Eating oatmeal 3 meals a day or something. It's like, oh, no.
Well, I want to thank everybody who gave us a call, all our listeners who tuned in. And I hope you'll tune in every Thursday at 11 because your voice really does matter.
KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Well, I hope we like pleasure here. But anyway, opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and callers, and they do not necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. Next week, we will be discussing nostalgia or an imagined past, inspired by the show before us. We want to talk about when were things better or greater or more perfect than they are now, and our own personal imagined past versus our country's and others. So we hope you'll tune in and join another lively discussion.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to have to think about that. I think 5 minutes ago it was really great. This week, this has been Let's Talk on KWMR with your hosts, Mary Frank, Robin Carpenter, and I'm Paul Riffett.